Hello, my name is Jordan Souls, and I'm from a company based in Montreal called Rodeo Effects. That's what Montreal looks like, although right now it's covered in snow, so it's a little bit different. When I first joined Rodeo Effects, a little bit about me, I actually started my visual effects career in a Sony ImageWorks company with thousands of people. And I moved to Rodeo Effects in 2010, and we were about 30 employees. And well, now we've grown to almost 300, which is kind of an impressive growth over about 5 years. In 2010, we basically did a couple of things: concept art, map painting, some very 2D oriented work, and then compositing. And as of today, we've now managed to fill in all of the boxes and become kind of a full-fledged studio, which has been a long trip for us. We have studios in Montreal, Los Angeles, and Quebec City, so not only are we a studio that, we're now kind of a studio that is becoming more and more global. This is a little bit of what we've been doing recently. That's a little bit of what inspires all of our artists to come to work every single day, and one of the reasons why all of us really enjoy the industry that we're working in visual effects. So what does it take to really serve the story? Because ultimately visual effects are great and amazing, but ultimately the way that we see it is we need to be able to serve the story. So a company that was 30, that might even be 300 now, still has to think very nimbly. We still have to be very flexible, and more importantly, we still have to be inventive. And I know that those are the cornerstones of what this conference is about. So to show you some of what we do is we also like to try and figure out ways to do things that don't cost an enormous amount of money and that we can do things really quickly. One of the things that we learned how to do very quickly was body scanning. We used a Kinect camera and a Canon 5D. We took images of all of our employees in a T-pose, and then we took a Kinect camera and actually did a full body scan of them. Then we were able to take the images from the Canon 5D and just project it on, and suddenly we have we have a character. This was around 2013, we then found software, trackerless motion capture software called IPI Soft, and what it allowed us to do was to be able to do motion capture just using PlayStation 3 cameras. They cost about $30 a piece, so it worked out pretty well. From that, we were then able to take different sort of animation cycles or build them from the motion capture. And sort of why that's important is then we were able to fill an entire stadium full of people with all of the characters that we built. In fact, this entire stadium is almost entirely comprised of Rodeo Effects employees. So we try and figure out ways in which to be able to do things efficiently, economically, and more importantly, to serve the story. Come 2015, we found a Kickstarter project called Perception Neuron. And just turn off the sound here. There. And this was even cooler because ultimately we were able to strap sensors onto our employees, and it would talk to the computer via Wi-Fi. So we invested in this Kickstarter project, and it worked out pretty well. Here's the representation of the actual animated character responding directly into that. So here we've got an employee basically scaling a wall. So, why are we doing that? Primarily because we had a shot here in a movie called Last Witch Hunter, where basically we had to populate just that. And so here are some fully CG characters whose movements are entirely driven from those guys, our employees, basically climbing the wall. Again, another way in which to be able to do things kind of quick and efficiently. On top of that, we started to build out what we call a motion camera. Again, another do-it-yourself project. Doesn't cost any money really, or very little money. So we've got a camera that basically coordinates in real time the camera's position. We're using an app that you can get off of the App Store called Zeus Track. It's really quite impressive. It is a camera tracking system, and at the same time, it's building a point cloud of the environment it's recognizing. It's got a second camera, basically a phone, that's connected to your Maya display, and so it's just showing you what the animator is actually animating in real time. And then super awesome handles. So here's sort of an example of us just playing around with it in our studio. And again, it's kind of a unique and clever technique, but we're then able to basically drive a virtual camera. The above is a scene in Maya. And we're able to sort of drive the coordinates of a virtual camera, which is really quite impressive because you're just staring at like a Samsung phone and an iPad there. When I was back at ImageWorks, we had, tens of thousands of dollars of Vicon equipment that went into that, and now you can just build it yourself. On top of that, we can then take the Kickstarter project that we bought and do the exact same thing where we merge the two together, and now I can have animated character playing in a virtual environment and be able to see that virtual environment in real time. Again, all equipment that you can get, all things that you can buy, and from our perspective, it's really great because it allows us to do things quick and easy without a tremendous investment. Finally, we also wanted to come up with a camera depth device. The idea here is we were contacted on a movie where they wanted to do a hologram of something that was actually being filmed at that time, and we were trying to figure out, well, how would we do that? Obviously, the performers are moving in real time. They're already happening, and the last thing we wanted to do was have to recreate that in 3D. So the first thing we took a look at was our Kinect camera. Maybe that would work. And it actually doesn't do a terribly bad job. It builds out a depth map, which is really all we cared about. The only issue was that it was an 8-foot range, and if you've ever been on a set, that range doesn't work. And more importantly, especially in visual effects, you have to kind of stay in the shadows a little bit. So this one wasn't really going to work, but it was interesting all the same. We then moved on to basically a German company who was making this appliance called a Mesa. It's basically a time-of-flight camera, and it was really, really cool. They use it for being able to see people that are about to go on trains so that they can open the doors automatically. We liked it a lot. The only issue was that now I solved the range problem in that I can get almost 10 meters, which is plenty of range, but the resolution is really, really small, as you can see. It's really, really narrow. So unfortunately, again, that wasn't going to work. So what we ended up doing was buying GoPro cameras, really, really easy and cheap. And we basically would set up a stereo rig of those, so 2 sets of 2 GoPro cameras, and then we would just have them off to the side, basically staring at basically everything going, or the scene that is sort of going on. And here's an example of that, sort of one of our employees walking in our studio. And as you can see, because we've got these GoPro cameras, it's able to figure out on the fly, it's able to figure out the depth. And more importantly, it's even able to constitute a point cloud. So basically, what we wanted to do, or our intention, which was to be able to record what the actors were actually doing on set, we were able to achieve just by setting up these really, really low profile GoPro cameras. And as you can see, as you're sort of moving around the point cloud, we get a really, really cool effect. And from there, we can build on what it was that people, the holographic effect that the filmmakers were intending without actually having to recreate the whole thing in 3D. Finally, since I'm in Spain, I wanted to take a shout out to a Spanish company called Solid Angle, who basically creates our renderer that we use at Rodeo Effects called Arnold. I used it when I was at Sony ImageWorks, and we continue to use it at Rodeo Effects. It's amazing because ultimately it's a ray tracer, but its strengths are in that it basically uses global illumination, which is take a version of a picture, a snapshot of what the environment looks like when you're actually filming it, and then throw any CG character in there, and it's sort of almost automatically lit by using the strength of the sun or any of the sources of light. Here's an example from a movie called Unbroken, and you can see that throwing the airplane in there, it just works because we were able to use the lighting that was used for the actual character there. Everything is driven from reality. It's just photorealistic too. A movie like Birdman, where you weren't supposed to know that there were any visual effects, it allows us to throw things in there, including reflections, and it integrates really well into the scene. And on top of that, volumetric effects. So if we have to create something completely in CG, the lighting, the look of it, just ends up working really well. And it's also really dependable in terms of the amount of time it takes to render. So this was a scene from Game of Thrones from the very last season, and it was a fully CG scene, as you can see, and the dust particles and everything emitting was all rendered using the Spanish company Arnold, or Solidango. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, I'm Ignacio Caicoya. I work in London. We also do visual effects, a digital compositor. I studied a different career. Every day I got into YouTube. I looked for tutorials. I looked for the way to do it. And I realized that you can do it from home. You don't need big computers or very powerful computers. At the beginning, I thought it was very difficult. I had to go slowly. But we did more simple things, not like what we just saw. The more simple things were easy to do. I started working for Double Negative from the bottom, and slowly I've been promoted. I've realized that there are amazing production companies in Spain, and I think you just have to have the will. And if you have the will, you're going to make it. I'm going to show you different scenes of pictures that we have, of movies that we have worked on. Here we would like to show you some of the takes. We can see a real image with double digital, as you can see now for these type of takes. We are mixing images, like here where he's falling. One of the interesting things that I found in this movie, Scarlett Johansson appears on the motorcycle, and she's represented by a double, who's a boy. People may think, oh, she looks so sexy, but it's a man's body, but Scarlett Johansson's face. In another take, we also had to change the shoulders and the legs because it was too obvious that it was a man. For example, in this take, it's her. These cars that you can see have some cannons in the bottom in order to lift them up in the air. And they were tied to the cars with a string, but it's impossible to control where they're going to land. You can see that on the floor there are many cameras, which were good to take different points of reference. Here, everything is real. Here, they were kind of making fun of a company, of a movie. As you can see, you're going to see that we need to have certain references, like the motorcycle. We had to see where the camera had to move and where it had to focus. The company does have to put anything that's around out of focus. And please, let's now see the second part. This is a summary video of Interstellar. This is the one where we got the Oscars for the best audiovisual effects. This is due to all of the research that we did in the background. We worked with Keith Thorne, who is an American physician, and he's very well known for his work. There are many movies where there's a lot of fantasy, and there are others where we try to stick more to reality. And then Christopher Nolan, in most of the movies he makes, he tries to use real images to bring more realism. Here you can see how the stars have been distorted. Here we can see a helicopter. This is a real image mixed with special effects. And the robots that also appear here and in the movie are the most simple but most efficient robots you can find. Something this simple can really help you get out of a difficult situation. Obviously, he didn't work as a robot, but at least we tried. Here you can see how both of them are dropping the boat, and we combined it with computer images. Then we can see how the robot is interacting with water, and we mixed the different images in order to make it more real. This wave the image was taken in the Basque Country. And as you can see here, it's a prototype that he created, and we mixed it with real images. Here you can see how we get all the reflections in the water, and it makes it look more real. Here we have an IMAX camera that's inside a plane to get these images. Then we can see all of this set, which is impressive, and this was filmed in Iceland. Here, I think that the actor broke a leg. These are real images. Here we also studied how the objects would react on approaching the black hole. This on the right side is a rabbit. We use all kinds of objects. and to end. When it enters this planet, what we can see are the room of the daughter. It all occurs in a different space and room, and therefore he can go to the infinite. If you can see, it's a bit complicated, and in some takes you can see the room next door. We had to repeat the image many, many times in order to get it. Now you can see the image of her at the bottom. This happens 1 or 2 seconds later. Here on the right, you can see how one image is linked to the next, and like that up into the infinite. That way he was able to get in touch with her. As I mentioned previously, everything had been studied, but I think that that part precisely hadn't been. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Hello, my name is Miguel Ángel Doncel. I'm the CEO of CGO. We are a small Madrid company. I was asked to make a small introduction of who we are, just to focus a bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain what it is that we do. We develop software. All of you here are geniuses doing special effects. What we try is to develop technology for people who have stories to tell, can make the most of the computers they're using. We work in the audiovisual sector, and as has been mentioned before, we are the most technical part. We don't make pretty images, but we know how to put the buttons in the software so that others can do so. Our clients are in television, series, advertising, etc., etc. We are 25 people, as I mentioned before. We have offices. Our headquarters are in Madrid, and we have offices in London, Paris, Seoul, and Beijing. We've been working in this field for about 22 years, and because we've put all of our efforts into it, we have managed to get into the high range of this sector, which is what we really enjoy. We like to help people to tell good stories. This is what we feel passionate about. We think that it's a great sector when we see the final results of what people can do using this technology. This is something that really motivates us and stimulates us to continue working. We create Mystica, which is a tool. It's a finishing type of software. Basically, someone has an idea for a movie, they have their actors, their special effects, and when everything is put into a box in order to finish it and produce a final result, a movie, that's exactly what we do. We make that box. We create a tool that helps you take all that material, put it together, change it, see if you like it, play with it, change the colors, the concepts, and in the end, in the less amount time possible, with the best quality possible, you can get the final product, the movie that we want to, the story that we want to tell. Some of our clients in the whole world, you can see some of them here on the slides, clients on TV like Sky, or people who work in the cinema world, Fototem, etc. We have clients in all of the countries and in the biggest world market of audiovisual communication. Some of the movies that have been filmed with Mystica, during the last few years, we have been able to use Spanish technology in movies that we are very proud of, like Mission Impossible, or the trilogy of The Hobbit the three films were a technological challenge. Here, Spanish technology was used to integrate everything and also regarding all of the colors. This one, I think, was a success that we are particularly proud of because there were more than 24 photograms per second. It was filmed at also 48 photograms per second. At that time, there were no systems to do this in real time, so it was a lot of fun. So yes, this was a lot of fun. It made us work a lot. The result was pretty good. And this success has led us to be involved in other productions such as Star Trek, Mad Max, etc. In one of the last ones that we have worked in, if you have and you will be able to watch it pretty soon at the cinema, we're very proud of it. 30 years later, we have managed to have Spanish technology used in what I think is a point of reference in science fiction cinema in order to create expectations. I have brought a little piece for you to watch. Please, could we see it now? Thank you.
Who are you?
I'm no one.
I was raised to do one thing. But I've got nothing to fight for.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. A Jedi. They're real.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
Okay, so summarizing who we are. So we are a bunch of people from Madrid. We love telling stories and using technology to do so. So we are a group of professionals, highly motivated professionals with the capacity of listening customers and turning their dreams into technology-driven reality. So with a quality image. And where are the challenges of the industry for the futures, and what are the main trends? So the world of storytelling is evolving all the time, and if we look at what happened in previous years, we could say that everyone was a bit paranoid, trying to find new ways of telling stories with the highest level of quality to give a better entertainment experience to viewers. We try to tell stories to help people have a good time. People pay their ticket, see the movie, get some popcorn, and they want to have fun. So our work is to help these people to have the best time possible, to resort to their emotions and feelings, and to place them in the center of the story. And technology is giving us better tools to help us get to the customers, to the viewers' feelings. So now, when we have using good tools, we help people to feel at the center of the movie. We use HCR. We have a lot of abbreviations, you know, but HCR is to have a higher frame rates with 48 frames per second or even more. And you get a different feel compared to traditional movie industry. But also you have very clear images and you get a lot of realism. So some people like it, some people don't. Then we have the HCDR. It's also technology that we see a lot now. And so the next generation of TV sets are going to be HDR and 4K, and we are able to see a lot more details in some areas because usually it's a lot more black, and we can see a lot of details in highly illuminated parts. So once again, we have in our hands new ways of telling stories, and also with more advanced technological tools that allow for better results. Also the standardization of color systems. We're trying to unify all the color spaces used in the industry. There's tens of them. I will not go into detail. It might be too technical, but it's one of the lines where the industry, once again, is it's betting a lot on that, trying to unify it so that work processes are more powerful, and hopefully we'll be able to get better results at the end of the value chain. The Ultra HD also. There's TV channels all over the world using it. In Europe, you're using 3K, in some countries 4K already. The image you see, the bottom right, the small one on the right explains how is an HD. It's like it was the best thing ever up till recently, but now you can see what would be the equivalent with a 4K Ultra HD. And then even the Japanese are betting on HK recordings. So what do we get with that higher resolution? When we get a lot of resolution in the image, you have a high level of details that you cannot get when you work in the smaller resolutions. Or there's also virtual reality, VR, that allows us to apply all that I said before. You can do anything you want in stereo with a 4K resolution, and the level of resolution with VR is that we give creatives, they give us a new way to draw our attention, to entertain viewers. So they put some glasses and we place them in a world where we are going to tell a story in a stereo and in an interactive manner. So they're watching the set that is, where the story is happening. Sometimes it's difficult to tell a story, with those tools, but there's the world of museums, tourism that can make the most of that. It could be interesting in those sectors to give the opportunity to people to experience this way with the level of imagination you can apply thanks to virtual reality, and the viewer will feel that he can interact and interplay, feel the setting we have built for him. So there's a lot of abbreviations, as you can see, but summarizing, we're trying to look for new ways of telling better stories and to achieve that when someone pays for movies tickets, he will experience a magical experience. So with technology, we live out of telling stories, and our role is to generate IT technology that will help achieve those objectives. Won't go further, and I will give the floor back to José Luis. I guess that during the round of questions, we'll have further opportunities to develop my speech. So thank you all anyway. Okay, we will go on now with a debate, small debate. So behind all of that, there's an industry that generates a lot of jobs, highly qualified jobs. And maybe there's not the public acknowledgement, recognition that it deserves. How do you feel about that? I think you're right. This sector, depends on people that feel proper vocation for that, and people who work in that field devote their life. They spend a lot of hours generating contents that people will like, and especially with the special effects, that's the part people do not know. People usually know the actor, the one which has the leading role, maybe the producer or the director. But people do not know all those people working behind the scenes. They are the ones that are not known, and they really deserve a lot of recognition because their work is amazing.
Jordan, what do you think about that? In Canada, it's the same like in Spain, or?
To some degree, I think the visual effects artists are. I think they're growing in their stature. I think, I meet with directors and productions all the time, and visual effects is just becoming a bigger topic of conversation a lot earlier on, whereas a number of years ago, it was something that was thought of after you had finished filming. So I do believe that the industry is changing, growing, and the recognition of the artists as well is becoming better.
You had to go abroad as well to work in that field. What's your perception? I feel it's not really recognized. I didn't know that field until I started working in that. But what happened in the United States with Life of Pi, they didn't get the recognition they deserved, and they could not, face the amount of expenses they had to go through. And it's true that movies have more and more special effects, and it's true that we have a lot more work right now, but sometimes it's just out of ignorance. People ignore the work that's behind all of that, and that's why it's a bit underestimated. How you feel the future of special effects will be? What are going to be the main trends? Are they going to follow the virtual reality path? That's the $1 million question, and it's a difficult answer. At the end of the day, the industry has to follow the path set forth by the viewers. So any tool that will help that story to have a bigger impact, or to be more beautiful visually, or more spectacular, or altogether more immersive, that should be the path we need to take. There's a lot of open trends right now, and I believe in HDR personally. And there's also a lot of advantages for the cycle in terms of cost, and it gives it a lot of possibilities. and I believe in that path. But at the end of the day, we live in a sector that is undergoing evolution processes all the time. There's a lot of technological inventions. There's always something that's invented that's more spectacular, more impressive. And somehow we are at a very interesting point right now. I had never seen before that many possibilities, that many innovation. If you compare VR with HDR, that it doesn't have anything to do, and there's so many trends running in parallel that many of them will end implementing.
Jordan, how you see the future of the VFX? Because you experiment a lot in your enterprise. We can see that with you make a lot of gadgets, and how you see the future of all this?
To me, it's very exciting. Trends like VR, trends like even HDR, with what you're referring to in terms of color, in terms of even resolution, being able to show you even more detail at an even higher resolution. It's in terms of what direction is it going to move to, I don't think any one of us could say. But the intention is always the same, irrespective of whether you're in a virtual environment or you're on a physical set. The intention is still to try and tell a story. And so a director works off of a script. And in terms of the choices of technology and the choices of experience, ultimately those would be driven by the words on the page. And being able to express those words in a number of different ways is fantastic. But ultimately, that would be more of a decision made by the director. But in terms of the responsibility, shared by all of us.
And what would be your next gadget? Because we saw that you like to play with gadgets in your enterprise. What are you involved in now?
We're looking at augmented reality. We're looking at the ability to be able to, we design spaceships, and the ability to be able to design those spaceships and not necessarily have to see them on a screen, but to be able to see them in front of you is really impressive. And just tools with which to be able to make the artist's ability to work every day easier and faster. We also do a lot of work practically. So we like to shoot effects, not necessarily create them in the computer, and we think that gives us a lot of different advantages in terms of being able to see something in reality. Even if what we shoot we don't ultimately end up using, it provides incredible reference that we can then use to replicate in the computer. So, just trying to define things in a way to be able to make an artist's life even easier.
Ignacio, in your day-to-day in London, do you get projects related to augmented reality or stereoscopy? Or are you more focused on 2D? It's stereoscopy. We don't work with 2D, but I think that virtual reality and special effects belong to the same branch. I think that in the future, as right now, is based on movement capture. We are using special effects, and we can see it in real time. And this way, the director, who doesn't know this field so much, can indicate which way he wants to go, and maybe he can change the script a little bit. I also see that this is a pyramid. I think that people need to realize that if we want quality in a short amount of time, we need more investment. And gradually, we need to realize that this is not a field where you can say, I need it for tomorrow. If you want it tomorrow, then we need to hire 50 people to do it. And I think that people in the field are realizing this more and more. Let's continue with you. What is the strangest special effect that you have had to work with? Oh, I don't really know. It's not strange, but I was surprised to have to put makeup on Scarlett Johansson. She had a lot of she needed a lot of makeup because she was pregnant and she wasn't looking so good. So that was pretty funny, actually. Then in Mission Impossible, I was told that I had to have them use their guns and shoot, and then some dust had to fall. So when you shoot against a wall, you can see a little bit of stone falling. After 50 takes, they wanted all of these takes. We are used to seeing real explosions. So what we have as a point of reference is what we had seen in other movies. And we think that it has to be unreal to make it look as real as possible. Miguel Ángel, you've traveled around the whole world. You've worked in China to set up stereo rooms. What can you tell us about the strangest experience you've had to try to convince clients to use technology? And something that you can share with us here. Oh, I could tell you many anecdotes. Probably one of the most interesting ones, I don't know if it's funny or not. Usually when I say people laugh, I don't. I had a really hard time. One of the most complicated situations I went through was when we got in touch with the people from Port Road for the first time when we were working on The Hobbit. They had heard that we had really, really good tools. And since they were going to film their movie in stereo, they came to a trade fair to see what how our technology worked. They didn't say which movie they were working on, but it was pretty obvious. It was a secret, but we knew that it was in New Zealand, so it was pretty obvious. When they came to see us, they only had 20 minutes for us because they were in a big hurry. We had everything ready to really impress them, and it was a real mess. Nothing worked. Everybody was really nervous because we weren't used to dealing with these issues, so it was really awful. We weren't even able to make a demonstration to show them how it worked. So at the end, the truth is we had a good excuse because there was a problem with the electricity. So in the end, it turned out well. And they came back the following day for 20 minutes to see how it worked. The 20 minutes became about 4 hours. They analyzed the project in depth. They really loved it. And this led us to a 5-year relationship, a really good one, where at the end of the day, yes, everything turned out really well. But yes, this was a really difficult time for me.
And Jordan, and you?
Probably something that people don't realize is that in the movie Birdman, there's actually a drum beat that is captured throughout the entire film. One of the real challenges that we had was that the entire film is actually sped up or slowed down depending on the drum beat that's going on. You wouldn't realize that at all, but in order to be able to achieve a particular frame for a particular beat is incredibly difficult, particularly over a 100-minute film, and that was something that when we were working on the film we weren't entirely aware of, and you'd get notes back that would be like you're a quarter of a frame off or 1.5 frames off, and in the end it was just maddening to try and figure out, well, how could we be that far off? But then when you see the film and you realize how tightly coupled it is to the music, you begin to appreciate that the director had a much different perspective than we did.
I think we are running out of time. What would be your best piece of advice to young people who are working in this field? I would tell them to keep at it. You have to get in touch with a company and show your best videos, your best piece of work, and you can learn about this field from home if you want to. You just have to have the will, you have to find a camera, and you have to decide that since I'm freaky, I'm going to find a spectacular image to film. For example, you have to be capable of calling attention in 30 seconds. At the end of the day, in a company, then they're going to give you training, they're going to reshape you, and the important thing is for you to have the will, and then you will continue improving yourself. How did you begin, for example? Did you go to a special school? No, I started studying law. I saw that I was totally unmotivated. It was not my vocation. So I started to study advertising. I had a camera back then. I would take different takes with my friends. And slowly I started working with different producing companies. I worked with Maria Lafuente, a clothes designer in Argentina, Campanella, in a movie called Futbolina. I don't know if you've heard of it, Metegol. And slowly I was working for free. I learned a lot. It was like masters that I paid for myself. And slowly I learned a lot from all of them. So everybody was open to letting me join them since they weren't paying me. And then the producer, Double Negative, I asked them several times if I could join them through LinkedIn, etc. And they finally accepted. I started from the bottom. The supervisors would accept my work gradually and slowly. That's how I was promoted. In 4 years, I've changed 4 times my position. So if you have the will, I don't know what the situation is here, but there, if they see you have the will, they don't want you to become stagnated. They really want you to keep on being promoted. In your case, Ignacio, instead of giving advice to young people, what do you think would be good to do in order to promote this sector more in Spain? But please don't be offensive. I think that the potential in Spain is amazing. I think they're very good people from a technological point of view. Ignacio is a very good example. It's people who have a global vision of this industry. They know what the needs are. They're very multidisciplinary. And okay, it's very easy to say so, but not to do so. I think that maybe a good idea for the sector in Spain would be to look outwards and export our model. I think that this industry in Spain shouldn't be so endogamic. They need to think more globally. We could have business in the whole world, especially bearing in mind that Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world, and this is a huge potential. I think that we have nothing to envy of any other country in the world, and that people here have a lot of potential. So all of these factors mean that we can really try to make the most of this industry, and so that it can have great success, not only from a domestic point of view, but internationally. So I think that's the most important aspect.
And Jordan, what is your advice for the young talent people in Spain that wants to work in VFX?
I don't think it depends on whether you're in Spain or really anywhere else in the world. I think it's really just a passion for what you want to do. That really ultimately is, that's more advice about life. But my dad always said that if you love what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like you're doing work. And I can guarantee you that what I've been doing in visual effects from when I was doing a render wrangling shift from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., monitoring Polar Express, to now, every day is uniquely challenging, and every day brings problems that don't necessarily have solutions. But if that's the type of thing that inspires you and motivates you, then this industry is definitely the place to be inspired.
So be inspired with that.
I think that we've run out of time. Yes, I'm being told that we need to end here. We're going to be around here, so if anyone would like to ask any questions to the speakers, maybe we can talk outside. They're all very nice. To end, I would just like to say that it's very important to have events like this one and other ones in order to make people know the work that we are doing. I would also like to ask for a bigger support from the public administration and private companies so that this sector can really become established. This is a very safe commitment, safer than many other ones that are out there, because special effects in Spain have a lot of potential. Many people are going abroad, as we have seen, so let's not let them go away. Thank you.